Hello nail friends, and welcome back to another Honey Doll Nails video. Before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And while you're at it, hit that notification bell so that you may be notified of all future videos. Hello nail friends, I hope that you are doing well today. Today we are going to be talking about airbrushing. For those of you that did not participate in the airbrush class at the first of the month, you missed a treat. These are the airbrush paints that I will be using today from Amazon. Link down in the description box below. So here are the nails that I worked on for myself. As you can see, we have some gradients, we have some junk, we got some flowers, we got some butterflies, and then I have some plain purple nails. Now these nails are not finished, they're not top coated, none of that. These are just some press on nails that I put on and I polished them just for the class. Okay, so just going to start out with explaining the junk nails. So what is a junk nail? A junk nail is anything that you want to you can put on a nail that has no rhyme, no reason, it doesn't go together, don't match, even the colors don't even match. Just throw crap up there. So I have a whole bunch of stuff up here, including a dangle that I made. I thought about making some nail dangles or teaching a class on how to make your own nail jewelry. That'll be very interesting. Let me know if you're interested in something like that. And then of course we have the jelly flower. Before I started, I wanted to also make a sample nail while I was going along to show that you can airbrush your own nail. So I will be airbrushing the sample nail as well as airbrushing my own nails. So you can airbrush your own nails. Now, I'm going to be teaching a little bit on the airbrush gun. It's easy for me because I've been doing it for a long time. When I first started, airbrush guns were expensive. I mean, the gun itself was maybe $50 and then the compressor was maybe $200. I spent $400, I'll never forget it, on my first airbrush gun, compressor, paints, and stencils, and an airbrush class. And back then, they had like little demo tapes and stuff like that that you can buy. So with all of that, came to $400. I went to a place called East Coast Airbrush. It was out in Long Island when I was living in the city. And I'm gonna tell you something, that airbrush compressor was so heavy. That's the only thing that's changed with airbrush guns today is the gun is the same, the compressor has gotten smaller for nails. But if you're like me and you like to do art, I like to airbrush walls, t-shirts, pants, jeans, anything like that. So you need a bigger compressor. These little compressors today don't push out enough air to really do wall murals or jackets or anything like that in a major scale. Plus, it all determines on the cup. Because sometimes you see a cup that you can screw on and you can put a whole bunch of paint in it. That's for airbrushing cars, murals, and walls. But you can change that with the open cup, and as you can see right here. And I'm just putting maybe 1-2 drops at the most. Now I'm gonna tell you this before we get started. I did not like the white, and you'll see why. You're gonna see why in a minute. Because my airbrush gun was clean, fresh, and ready to go. But for some reason or another, the white was so watery that it didn't give a good effect like I wanted it to. Now, when you're airbrushing, make sure that your distance from the object that you're airbrushing versus your airbrush gun is in good distance, because if not, if your airbrush gun is too close, you'll get splatter. And if it's too far away, you'll cover up the whole entire nail. So you have to have like a happy medium in between the two. And you can do that. So you can see my distance between the nail and the airbrush gun itself. So in the class, I was teaching how to pinpoint. And how you do that is to pick a point on the nail and airbrush just that point. And that's why I think the airbrush blushing has become like this major thing now, because you just point the gun in one area and spray it back and forth and that's it. But to airbrush with stencils and freehand, it takes a little bit more practice than that. But if you're just getting, you see what I mean by this white? This white was horrible. But the other colors were great. So let me just say that. This airbrush paint itself was a good paint. But like I said, I just did not like the white. All right. I did not. So here I am airbrushing my own nails. I'm going to do the exact same technique. Pointing the airbrush down at an angle. And I'm airbrushing in the corner by the cuticle, and then I'm gonna airbrush on the side, and then I'm gonna airbrush at the tip. Now what I used to love to do was airbrush my nails black on the very tips, like do like the ombre black. Oh, I don't care what color you use. If you ombre black on the tips of your nails, it would just turn it into something totally different. So when you're airbrushing, I do want to say this. When you pull down on the gun, if you push down on the gun, the air is supposed to come out. If you pull back on the gun, the color comes out. I'm going to say that again. You press down for the air to come out. You press back for the color to come out. So you have to do two things at one time. Press down, pull back. But when you press down and pull back, you got to pull back easy, because if you pull back too much, it'll be spraying everywhere. So just take your time. You see what I'm doing. I'm barely pulling back on it. Then I pull back on it a little more. Then I pull back on it a little more. And I'm drying it as I'm airbrushing it. So if I press down on the button, just air is going to come out. Ain't no paint going to come out. But if I pull back, see, when you pull back, that's what's going to release the needle. It's a needle in the inside of your airbrush gun that helps with the flow. Look how watery this is. That's one thing that I hated about that white. But when I got to the other the other airbrush colors, they were much more pigmented. So that's what I mean by the airbrush gun. It has a button. You see that, right? You see me doing it. You see me pulling back. So when you pull back, when you pull back, the color comes out. When you press down, the air comes out. Now, I do want to say this. The airbrush gun that I have, air comes out of it. So I don't know if they just make it like that now so it won't be so difficult. And then, too, it all depends on the gun that you buy. Iwata is a really good gun to buy. That's the gun. They have a few different guns, but I always like the Iwata. All right, so we have the first step done. Now, I'm really not worried about the paint splatter from the white. Not concerned about that, because that's just a primer. Just like how you prime a car with paint before you paint it, you prime it. You prime a wall before you paint it. Same thing with airbrushing. I like to prime before I put my initial colors down. And the reason is for that, because I want to bring the color up. So I had a kind of a dark lavender that I use for the base of the nail coat. And then I know that anything that I put on top of that is going to be a darker blue, a darker green, a hot pink. And the only way that's going to show up real good is it has to have a white undertone. Now you could do it without it, but you're not going to be satisfied with it. Because what I'm going for with these nails is a watercolor effect. Because I saw some nails, I think it was on Instagram or either Pinterest. I saw a picture and I just love the effect, the water effect of the airbrush. And I was like, I think I can create that. So the next color that I'm going to be using is this beautiful yellow. So you want to make sure that you get all the water out of the gun before you start with the next color. So I normally put water in my gun, shake it out. So as you're spraying the water out of it, you can shake it and that will help it to get out faster. And then I will also put some alcohol in it to clean it out too, to make sure that there's no little particles stuck down inside the needle. So You see the yellow? Look at this yellow. This yellow is not splattering. It's working great. And then I thought maybe it was because I didn't shake up the white. So make sure before you do any type of airbrushing, be sure to shake up your airbrush paint. And I did shake it, but the white still did this funky little thing. And sometimes that happens. That just lets me know that I have to go back to Createx. So now you asking me, Chinetta, what is a better airbrush paint? The best airbrush paint to me is Createx. Createx is the airbrush paint. They use airbrush cars, murals, and these beautiful paintings that people have on their walls, and they're airbrushed and stuff like that. Createx is good for airbrushing clothes, jeans, hats, all of that. Even if you wanted to give your client, which I had done this before, fake tattoos. You can airbrush fake tattoos on your client's hands or their feet. Guess what? It ain't gonna last but a day. But I had a client ask me, will you airbrush that on like my ankle? Because she wanted to get a tattoo, but she didn't want to go through the pain. And I said, well, it'll last as long as when you take a shower, it'll last that long. If you sweat, it ain't gonna last. But she wanted it anyway. Guess what? It came out really good. All right, so the next color that we're going to be using is this pink. Looking good. I like this pink. Very nice. Now, if I had to just put that pink on the nail without the white to bring it up, it would have, but it wouldn't have been this bright. And that's supposed to be like fluorescent pink. That pink wasn't as bright as I have seen. That's what I mean by like, so if you're dealing with Createx, they got all the colors, but you're gonna pay 3 times as much, even 4 times as much, because the paint is so thick. It is so thick. So what I would normally do is I would get a extra squeeze bottle and I would do a half and half. And I would have that airbrush paint for years. I think I still had some and I just throw this paint away. But I had this paint for so long. So anyway, so when you're airbrushing, let me just say this too. You know, just take your time. Don't rush yourself when you're airbrushing. If you're having a splatter situation like I'm having with this paint, most of the time it's probably just the paint. Because if you just got a brand new gun, ain't no way it should be splattering unless your needle is crooked. And a lot of times you can bend your needle when you clean your gun, if you don't know how to clean it properly. That's why it's always best to have more than one needle. It's always best to have extra airbrush supplies. Because it'll be a shame if you was right in the middle of doing some nails and your brush got clogged up. So it's always good to have 2 airbrush guns, 2 compressors. You see what I'm saying? All right, our next color is blue. So like I said, be sure to clean your airbrush gun out after every single color. And if you just don't have any alcohol, then get hot water. Water as hot as you can stand it, bubbling and boiling, and then put it in a squeeze bottle and have it. And that way, any little particles that get caught up in it will come right out. Now you see how I want that blue at a certain spot. So in my mind, I knew I wanted that blue right over top of that yellow. But I knew if I pull back too much, that I would lose it. It would spray the whole entire nail. So a lot of times you would have to work on your angles. And how you do that is you get a piece of paper. Just get a regular piece of paper and airbrush on a piece of paper. Make a square, make a dot, and airbrush right in the middle of that, or airbrush on the corner of that. And once you get that technique down pat, you can airbrush anything. All right, so now after you have finished doing your airbrushing, then you're going to put on a layer of either base coat or some type of foundation or some type of builder gel, something that's going to seal it. Because you see, once I put the top coat on there, it all blended together. That's why I said don't worry about the splatter effect. Don't worry about, you know, all this other stuff. Don't even worry about it. It's art. It is your interpretation of what you think art should be. And guess what? In the process of that, I wouldn't even worry about it. You make it the way you want it. So I'm just going to make this big, huge, gigantoid star on my thumb. All right, and now I'm gonna make another one over here in this corner. Alright, so I'm just going to let you sit back and watch the rest of this video. The rest of it is self-explanatory. If you have any questions, please leave your comments in the description box below. And I will definitely have the airbrush paints down in the description box below if you would like to purchase them. And I will also have a link for Createx so you can purchase some thicker airbrush paints if you would like to as well. Okay, now that that is all done and sealed, now we are going to put on a little shimmer. And this is a rub-on shimmer, and the only way this shimmer works is with top coat. And then you rub it on, and that's what the effect that it brings. That's the effect. I like the way that looks because it totally changed it and it softened it up. So when we started, this nail was purple, and now it has the watercolors and the ridiculous huge stars and everything on it exploding everywhere. This was my set of nails that I made for the class. Now in the class, you didn't have to follow the design that I was making. I was just showing them how to do a blush nail in different ways. So you didn't have to have a blush on the side. You could actually have a blush in different areas of the nail and turn that nail into whatever you wanted to turn it into. It's your nail. You make it the way you want it to be. And then of course, when everything is done, you clean up your cuticle work, and I put on some glow in the dark on my junk nails and the jelly flower nail as well. Yep, so now we're gonna clean up these cuticles and show you the reveal. I had a little bit of butterflies and stuff that I wanted to put on the nails. So I have a few little kawaii things laying on the table. I'm just trying to figure out where I wanted to put these little pieces. But eventually I did figure it out. Just was laying them up there to see how they looked. So I think I want to use that. And there was a few other pieces that I was trying to figure out how I wanted to lay it up there. Normally I already know before I do it, but I said, you know what? So this butterfly, let me tell you about this butterfly. This butterfly is on a magnet. And it has a magnet on the back, so your client can take the nail off. Excuse me. The client can take the butterfly off when they go to bed at night and put it on when they go out. And I wanted to make this butterfly a little stiffer, so I ended up putting some gel, glow in the dark gel, on the wings of the butterfly. So at night it will definitely glow in the dark. Just add a few little extra trinkets. Here and there. You know, sometimes you just need a few little finishing touches. And then, like I said, after I finished with everything, I cleaned my cuticles up and oiled my hands, and then I went outside and took some videos and some photos. Now I'm going to take some of this Art and Glow Aqua Green Glow in the Dark, and I'm going to mix it with some base coat. Excuse me, top gel. Normally I mix it with base coat, but since this is the top coat, I'm mixing it with top coat. Be sure to stir it really, really good because it's granular. And a little goes a long way, believe me. That little bit is enough to do 2 sets of nails. I really overused it. But anyway, I'm gonna pour some into this container here. I already had some in there, but I was adding to it for later. I should just make a glow-in-the-dark top coat, and that way I'll always have it. I should just fill that jar up with powder and make my own glow-in-the-dark top coat, because you can do that. If I could do this little bit, I can put some in a jar. But like I said, make sure it's mixed good, and it is mixed good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run over some of the nails, not all of them, but I do want glow-in-the-dark in certain spots. So I do want glow-in-the-dark on my butterfly wings. I want glow-in-the-dark down the sides of the nails. And then of course, once that dries, you're still gonna have to go back over it with top coat because it'll feel kind of granular if you don't. So just make sure that when I'm just placing it anywhere, because that's how I like my glow-in-the-dark to be in different spots. I don't like my whole nail to be glowing. I like certain spots in my nail to be glowing. So make sure you're not putting on and clumping it on, but you're wiping it off a little bit too. So I'm also going to put some on this big huge lollipop. Put a lot on that. And then some on the stars and the hearts. But like I said earlier, definitely wanted to make the butterfly wing a little bit more stiffer. And those are the petals that I purchased. Threw one of those on there too. Put some on the heart in the back that the butterfly is trying to land on. And then I did the wings. This set came out extremely beautiful. So like I said, when you're doing airbrush, trust the process, because you're like, oh God, this is going to turn out so bad. But once you put gel over top of your airbrush, it blends so well, right? It blends. I just showed you how it blended. Just to trust the process. Check this out. What you think about that? What you think about that? Come on now, somebody. Talk to me. Somebody tell me something. So, like I said, Airbrush class was so much fun. I will be having another class in a couple of months. If you would like to join, please let me know. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Here's the reveal outside in the sun. And until I see you again, nail friends, have a wonderful and blessed day.